Not Supposed to Be That Way, This Way is a black humor novel about a man whose basic freedom in life is driving to and from work until a thread that holds the delicate fabric of his life is pulled, and then things come apart and eventually kind of come back together in a different sort of way. Lenny Bender is not like your Walter Mitty kind of character, though. He's more just an ordinary person swept away through his days by the whims and caprices of everyday life. He's unaware that he's at a pivotal moment. Much like most of us, if we have a pivotal moment, we're not aware that it happens. It just happens. So, one of the things I like to do when I go to a bookstore and I see novels is I love to read first lines. I mean, I think they're incredible. I also like to read past the first line too. And so I'm going to give you a chance to hear the first line and a little past the first line because I think that's an important piece to set the stage. I also would say this about first lines. I really like to finish a book, pause, reflect, take it in, what just happened, and then go back shortly after and read the beginning of the novel again, because it's fascinating after you've read the novel to see how that beginning fits in. So theoretically, a good novel should be able to go all the way through, come to the end, and come back full circle and start over again very easily. It's a theory. So, Lenny stopped playing guitar the same day he bought his first suit and landed a job as a sales rep for still collections. Pamela thought it was just as well because she had enough of his jeans and flannel shirts, his music, and dreams of doing something more than pounding nails. She wanted a real man who could earn enough to support her endeavors in aerobic classes and childbirth, a man with an occupation that could make what she wanted possible. Over the past 8 years, Lenny's guitar had been hustled from room to room and corner to corner until its space in the closet of the guest room was abandoned for the place in the attic. Lenny rarely frequented the attic, Pamela's dumping ground for old memorabilia that she decided clutters up the space. I'm tired of it, Leonard. If it isn't bad enough, you keep footballs and basketballs and that guitar you never play. You take up the entire house with it. What's the difference? This is my house, too. Lenny paused a moment to give Pamela an opportunity to object. But she refused to venture that far. Beside, he continued, you have pictures of your mother and your father or your sisters, and God knows how many of little Jennifer plastered on every wall and table so that everywhere I look, one of them is watching. They're my family, Pamela said as if Lenny had gone too far. I know they're your family, but I didn't expect the whole troop to be staring at my every move with those half-assed smiles on their faces. Come off it, Leonard. Pamela, look around, they're everywhere. You've packed away all my books from the bookshelves to make room for your photograph albums. I like photographs. 30-some books? I think that's stretching it a bit far. And what about the family portrait above the bed? I'm not even in the picture because you made me take the picture. I forgot my tripod. So this is a little bit of a section that introduces the Triumph TR-3A and Lenny's friend Will. Lenny's about to leave the house and he goes in the garage. It's in the evening. The garage was dark and Lenny refused the light. He preferred an occasional trip or stumble over this or that rather than knowing each precise step. He felt his way around Pamela's black Impala parked nearest the door. He used her car as a reference point to get him to the other side where he parked his car. Gradually, his eyes adjusted to the darkness and he found his way into the driver's seat. Lenny turned the ignition, listened to the engine idle. The valves knocked slightly, barely audible, over the rumble and vibration echoing inside the closed garage. The number 3 plug hesitated once, as usual, before settling into a pattern of consistency. His mechanic friend, Will, never could understand why the engine bucked once. Every time she starts, it's the damnedest thing, almost as if she's letting out a sigh in protest. It gives her character, said Lenny. Character? Shit, we could all use a little of that. That's why we have cars and boats and houses and lawnmowers. right? They provide us with a bit of character, lacking in our wives, our kids, our jobs, our lives. You know what I'm saying? My wife pisses me off, my job's a rat game, and every time I think of children, I decide I don't want any. Will nodded. I had 2 once. Lenny smiled. He knew the story. Will's ex-wife, bride at 19, still 2 years older than him. How she took the 2 girls and thumbed a ride to Memphis. Ended up in West Virginia. He never understood. She never did either. Lenny watched as Will ran his hand along the slope of the hood of the car, admiring the coolness of the metal beneath the slick black surface. Yep, 62 Triumph. Now that's character. There's no certainty from one moment to the next whether the damn thing will start or die. Well, I figure it's a safe bet it's going to die like everything else. It could happen at any moment. And that suits me just fine. You never know. You just never know, and I have no problem with that. The unpredictability provides essence. Just about the time you think you've figured it out, something changes and you don't know. Anyway, if I wanted some certainty, I would drive a Lincoln, or maybe have a chauffeur. Will shook his head and smiled. He liked Lenny's visits because he enjoyed tinkering with Lenny's car while Lenny talked, which is what Lenny did. He talked. Not about anything in particular, just talk. Will always grabbed a couple of beers and went out back to the garage where he kept his tools, motioning Lenny to drive his car inside. Will was a mechanic by trade and a tool and die man by occupation, a practical nuts and bolts kind of guy who could tear down and reassemble an engine for the mere sensation. The simplicity of clockwise and counterclockwise ran below the surface of industry and captured a place in his life. After his first wife left, he rebuilt his life around another woman. And the mechanics of a new life with his second wife, May, turned out just fine. Clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, and counter. And not knowing gives you something to look forward to, a carrot at the end of the stick, just always beyond your reach. Yeah, but every now and then, Will added, you touch the carrot. And in that great moment, you can decipher the madness without a thought. That moment makes the carrot worth living for, and worth dying for. So you're telling me your car is your carrot? No, not at all. You can't confuse my car with a carrot. Cars are our self-image for better or worse, continued Lenny as he slipped into another world of thoughts and words quite unconscious of Will or Pamela or anyone else. We wake up in the morning, look around at the stranger lying next to us in an almost unrecognizable room, stumble out of sleep to look at ourselves in the mirror, wondering, who the hell are we? Only to discover we haven't any idea. We can shower, we can shave, we can put on suits, ties, dresses, or jeans. We can eat omelets or oatmeal, bacon, ham, orange juice, coffee, or both. We can mow the lawn or plant some flowers and shrubs around the deck or the pool, paint or put up siding, but the face in the mirror just keeps staring back, right on through the images and the facades and the mirages and that we surround ourselves with, and that face says, whatever you do just doesn't matter. Do what you like. It doesn't really matter. But our cars are different, Will questioned. He was the only person to understand Lenny when he got to talking like this. Lenny spoke with more than the words he said, as if the words meant nothing at all, and in that meant everything. That's right. Our cars make us. And our cars are our freedom. When we're driving, we can be whatever we want, wherever we want, go anywhere we want, and be anything we want. No limitations, just you and the empty road. Lenny's wife, Pamela, they meet at a party the night before this next excerpt, and Lenny decides to invite her to have breakfast at a restaurant. And Pamela says that she doesn't want to be driven over there. She doesn't want him to pick her up. She wants to be there. And so she goes to the restaurant quite early in order to lay her place at the restaurant, so when Lenny comes in, she has a little advantage. So they agree to meet at 11 at the restaurant, and then this scene starts. The clock above the opening to the kitchen moves slowly as Pamela watched the waitress scoop a couple pads of butter on a plate of toast sliced in half. She tucked a menu beneath her arm, grabbed the toast and a plate with an omelet and hash browns, and carried them over to the man with the plain dealer. She went to Pamela's table and set a menu in front of her. "I'm waiting for someone," said Pamela, "but I'd like a cup of coffee." "Cream?" "Yes, and water, please." Pamela looked over the cafe carefully like she was reading a novel, trying to find out what was between the lines, searching for what was understated and most prominent, an aspect, a feature, a grain of salt that would provide a strand to eclipse this reality and bend it to her will. And she waited. Through her first cup of coffee, through the departure of the gray-haired woman and the arrival of two young boys who gulped down root beers. She waited past 11, and the clock moving to 15 minutes past the hour, her second cup gone, and feeling conspicuous as the two men in sweats stood to pay their bill. The one with syrup on his lip smiled at her now that the syrup was gone, and she nodded in return. As they began to make their way to the exit, the door opened and an anxious Lenny made a hurried entrance. Stepping by the two men, excusing himself, he made his way to the corner table in the back and sat down. "Hi." Pamela looked at Lenny, who was breathing quickly but not out of breath. Just as he had done when they met, he put her off balance. This time, by a seeming reluctance to acknowledge that his arrival was late. Other men apologized so often for doing her wrong that Pamela not only accepted apologies as standard operating procedure, she relished the position of men obsequiously asking forgiveness. She reveled in the power and learned to employ her favor as a controlling device. But Lenny dispelled the myth. "Hi?" He said a simple hi. Nothing more, no sorry I'm late, no excuse, I overslept, overheated, overestimated, overreacted, or overdone. Nothing. Just hi. And the curious thing was that Pamela found herself accepting this one word without anger. According to the clock on the wall, it was 22 minutes after 11, and Pamela could only wonder why time did not seem to matter to Lenny. He cared more about not wanting time to matter than he cared about being late. "Hi," she said, the word spilling from her mouth, rifling through all the other words she could have chosen from her vocabulary. A smile mixed with a trace of laugh broke from Pamela as she waited for something more, something next. Lenny took her in. She was really beautiful. Just as beautiful as she thought the night before, but a night removed combined with that initial desire to see her again had confused his memory, and what he now saw was much more enchanting than what he remembered. So amid the years of language acquisition, he had singled out the one-dimensional word hi from his vocabulary and repeated it a second time. Hi. His eyes were penetrating. He looked at her in a way expressing genuine affection, ice water blue. Although she was not sure if she had ever seen or felt sincere affection before, Lenny's countenance was very clear to her. "Hi," she returned. This time, the inflection different, sharing acceptance of Lenny. Lenny understood the meaning as well. "I like this, saying hi to you. Can we continue?" "I don't know, can we?" Their meeting had gone so differently than she expected. Pamela wondered if she arrived too late, or was she too early? "Did you order anything?" he asked. "No," she paused. "I was waiting." This is a section with H. Lee Still, Pamela's father, who owns a collection agency that Lenny works at. So in this scene, it just tells a little bit about the collection agency and H. Lee's idea of what the collection agency did and also kind of his perspective on human beings. The business slowly began to prosper when H. Lee took over. The collection agency was well suited for the arrogant H. Lee Still, who judged people by their risk ranking, that is, their ability to pay. His attitude was black and white like the rest of his life, no gray areas, and the ruthless, unforgiving tactics quickly spread throughout the company as he hired people who thrived within the confines of his attitude. Following the cynical vigilance of H. Lee, the company maintained accounts throughout the city and state, as well as many accounts with out-of-state companies. If you can create debts, then you can pay debts. No questions, no excuses, no exceptions, period. Pay or don't play, he told Lenny the day he begrudgingly welcomed him to the firm. The bottom line, son, is if these people owe people money, then they've shirked their responsibilities. And if it was any different, we wouldn't even be talking to them. H. Lee scrutinized Lenny in search of a weakness, a sign of sympathy or compassion. In collections, dealing with delinquent accounts was as impersonal as eating a hamburger or a piece of roast beef. Nothing personal, you understand, he continued after slurping down the remaining lukewarm dregs of his morning coffee. H. Lee pushed himself away from his desk with both hands, rolling back his brown leather chair, worn beyond the means of frugal. Sure you don't want a cup? He asked Lenny as he made his way to the door leading to the coffee machine outside his office. Coffee's good for you, makes you aggressive and keen, and hell, indigestion fires you up like a pissed off alley cat fixing for a fight. No thanks, sir. I'll have some later, Lenny lied. Okay, I think I've probably reached the end of my time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to the Ashland Book Festival, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Woo!